G'day Internet, welcome back to another video and back to the Amiga 1000. Now in the last video we gave it a thorough clean and a retro bright and I got my external GoTech working. But with a machine like this you obviously start thinking to yourself, okay, what upgrades can I give this machine? Now that's a bit of a difficult question. Now at the end of the day you could do something crazy like, throw some kind of vampire or just throw a PyStorm in it or something along those lines. But my aim with the upgrades on this machine was to keep it, I don't know, period correct, at least from a usability point of view to a degree, okay? So there was a couple of caveats. One, I still wanted it to run Workbench 1.3 because that's kind of what this machine should run. But I still wanted a few little benefits. I wanted like a little extra RAM would be nice. I wanted some kind of hard drivey SD card kind of solution. So I went looking around, and yes, you can accomplish all that with a PyStorm, but with a PyStorm, far as I'm aware, you're limited to Workbench 3.1 or newer. So what did I decide on? I decided on this, I don't know, I'm not Portuguese, Parceiro, I think it's pronounced. But this particular one is the Parceiro II, a new updated version. And it gives me a bunch of extras. So this here is the Parceiro II, designed and built by David Dunkley. What does this give you? Well, it gives you 8 meg of fast RAM. It gives you an SD card storage solution. It also gives you a real-time clock, but what's really nice about the new 2 version is that this also supports boot ROMs, so no more kickstart disk, which is actually something that I was hoping to achieve. Now, to make use of the boot ROMs, you do have to make a modification. Now, I should point out that Dave provides everything you need. Here's the little package of chips and wire and sockets and stuff, as well as some really, really good instructions. So to do that, we need to install a modification to the daughter board, so let's get stuck into that. So with the 1000 stripped down, the next thing we need to do is remove the daughter board. Now this is not a job that I've done it a couple of times before, and well, yeah. Essentially, it's connected to the main board by a whole bunch of tall pins. I'm sure there's a proper name for it, but there's 2 screws here and here. And most of the pins are along the back here. There's some here, and there's some about here, and is there any over here? There's none over here. So it is a case of just very carefully kind of wiggling it out bit by bit. That bit's starting to come. And it slowly starts to make its way out. This corner up here, I generally find is the most difficult, but a bit of a wiggle, and there we go. There's our daughter board out. So on the daughter board, there's 2 chips that we need to kind of concentrate on. This one here and this one here. This one here is called the, I don't know, D-A-U-G-E-N, Durgan, and the Durcas. Both PAL chips, and in the kit we have replacement ones. So these both need to come out, and we'll put sockets in, and then there's some wiring on the back side. So let me get removing these chips. This one actually is already socketed, but it's a pretty crappy socket, so I'm going to replace it anyway. All right, first up, some IPA, just to give a bit of a clean. Which are the chips I'm after? Right. Oh, they're labelled on the back. That's nice. It's actually pretty clean, to be honest. Then some fresh solder. And finally, out with the desoldering gun. And when that inevitably doesn't work, some hot air. And with that done, it's time to put some sockets in, just making sure you've got the notch the right way. That goes in there. I'll find some blue tack to give me a helping hand. And we're ready to put the socket in. So this is the last bit of the modification. We need to run a wire from that via just there to pin 19 of the DPLAS CAS, which should be here, and then up to a via just there. Now, doing this kind of spot-to-spot wiring is not really my forte, so I'm going to start with the middle one, which I've already peeled back the wire. All right, that looks good. Now I should be able to cut this to length, if I can pick it up. Attempt to trim this. And solder it down. And there we go. That's actually not too bad. And very kindly, the replacement power chips are labelled. So CAS goes into CAS. And Gen goes into Gen. Nice, and that is now ready to go back into the Amiga. So, according to the instructions, I should now be able to just simply power this on, and I should just get to the insert kickstart logo. It's reading. Awesome. Okay, that is actually what it's meant to do. Right, the instructions now say to test with the Parceiro, set the Parceiro ROM jumper to disable ROM. Okay, it is. There's a jumper pin just here. Insert into the side. Power on the Amiga. And I should also still get the insert kickstart screen. Reading. Okay, kickstart again. Okay. Power down the Amiga. Set the ROM select to bank 1. This is a very tight fit, but then again it is a brand new edge connector. Come on. Okay, there is a switch down here, which is set to bank 1. And I need to change this jumper to the other two, which is enable ROM, like that. Right, I should be able to power this on and it should boot straight into Workbench 1.3. Nothing. Ooh, the light's on this time. Hey! Ooh! I've got an Amiga 1000 with a hard drive. And 8 meg and 2, because I haven't got the RAM expansion in, so it's only got like 256K of chip RAM at the moment. Data. I don't have a mouse or anything plugged in. Ah! Right, I now have 8.5 meg of RAM. Obviously, 512 of that is fast RAM. And I believe buried in the utilities folder is sysinfo. Right, clock not found. It's got a clock. Standard Agnes, PAL, standard Denise, 68,000. And if we go have a look at memory, I've got 8 meg of fast and 256K of slow RAM and 500 kilobytes of chip RAM. I'm assuming the speed's not going to be amazing. I'm 1.36 times faster than a stock A600. Take that, A600. Right, let me go reconfigure all this so I can actually capture some of this video instead of like, you know, this. I can do this forever, you know. Actually, before we do, there's one other upgrade that I want to do, which is, I guess, period correct. Randall was nice enough to give me a 68010 to put in here, so quick swap. Nice. So it's actually been a few days since I bolted all this back together, and what I've been doing in that time is kind of poking around the hard drive installation. Now, there's two main reasons for that. One is simply my lack of familiarity with Workbench. I didn't have an Amiga growing up, which is one of the main reasons why I kind of collect these machines now, is so I can learn about them. And the other thing is that just basically the way that David has set up some of the stuff on the hard drive images. So a big shout out to David, who back and forth through a few emails as I've started to get my head around how it's set up. So let's take a look. Now, when you boot the thing up, there's basically 3 hard drives. We've got WB1, which is the main hard drive. We've got a data drive, which has got a whole bunch of stuff on it, some useful, some not. And then we've got a exfer or transfer drive, which is actually a FAT32 partition. So you can take the SD card out of the Parceiro, stick it in your laptop or your Windows PC or whatever, and actually copy files to it. So like, you know, because everything seems to come in LHA files. So you can copy files to it and then extract it and do whatever you want to do, which is actually really, really handy. So on the main drive, we'll get to the launcher in a minute, but we've got things in utilities. For instance, let's take a look in sysinfo now, so you can actually see it. And as you can see, it's detected our 68010, still standard Denise, PAL, etc., etc. If we go into memory, there's our 8 meg of fast RAM. There's our 256K of slow RAM, which, as far as I'm aware, is the RAM on the daughter board that Kickstart would normally get loaded into. And then we've got what's this 506 kilobytes of chip RAM. And if I run a speed test, I'm 1.45 times faster than an A600. And that'll probably do, the bump in that from what I previously ran it will be from the 68010, I'm guessing. Directory Opus is already installed, which is always incredibly handy. And there's that. And this is actually a good place to look at those other drives. So that's SD0, which is the main drive. We've got SD3, that's the transfer, that's the FAT32 directory, and as you can see, I've already started using it to move some stuff around. One of the things I was actually playing with is to try and install one of the no-click applications, so this thing would stop clicking all the time. I couldn't actually find one that worked on this A1000 with the Matsushita drive that's in it. If anyone can point me to one, I'd greatly appreciate it. SD4 is that data drive, which has got a whole bunch of stuff on it. One of the things is a rather large games directory. This is actually a huge WHD load library. Now, Workbench 1.3 can't run WHD load, but there's a workaround for that, which I'll get to in a minute. But also in here, we've got some backups of various OS installs, and we've also got, I'm not actually sure what Fredfish is. If someone can let me know, that'd be really nice. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. There's also a huge ADF collection in here, which could be useful for various things. And finally, there's another copy of some of the utilities for the actual Parceiro. So drivers, the Kickstart, SD Toolbox, stuff like that. Other things that are on this directory, for instance, is dpaint, both 1 and 2. dpaint just works, so there's the low-res version. And if I can find a floppy disk, because this actually brings me to one of the little things that I found out about Deluxe Paint that I didn't know about. For instance, if you want to go load, it's always going to go looking for a floppy disk first. That seems to just be the way Deluxe Paint is written. And so if I stick in just a random disk, it'll get past that. But what we can do now is go to SD0, and where are we? Paint, Faces, and we could open up King Tut. And there we go. There's King Tut in Deluxe Paint. Tell me that's not a classic look on an Amiga 1000. Now, one of the great little things that has been set up on here is this little kind of launcher application. It seems, as far as I can tell, to be just a really nice, lightweight, searchable kind of start menu-y kind of thing. It's manual, as in the entries are. It's not automatic. But if we go into it, David has already basically set it up with a bunch of the utilities already installed and a whole stack of what I'm guessing is his favourite games. So as an example, we can launch the Boing demo, and you'll see that the screen kind of just goes, freaks out for a minute because, and I learned this one out the hard way, because there's Boing running in the background. I should have known this because that's kind of how it's always demonstrated in like the videos and the films and stuff from back in the day when the Amiga 1000 was launched. And other classic demos like the Juggler, that's here. Now there's a whole bunch of games that are already installed, and I actually found this kind of out by accident, I guess. So for instance, if we spark up Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, and I launch it, up it comes. But it occurred to me that I don't think Indiana Jones was a hard drive installable game. So if I exit out, and I have a look, because if you come up here, we can go view and edit. It's pointing to some script file. So I went hunting, and if we come back to the main drive, games, adventure, Indian The Last Crusade, there's this random file. And I'm like, I wonder what's actually in there. So I thought I'd go and spark up the shell and actually have a look. So W shell's already actually installed on this, which is nice. And we can go CD, game, CD, games, adventure, and it's nice. We've got tab complete. Whoops. Indie Last Crusade, and take a look. And there's that Indiana Jones Last Crusade adventure, okay? So I'll go ed, Indiana Jones, blah, and it's launching a game slave file, which is WHD load, but it's using a thing called JST. So I went Googling JST, and it turns out that basically it's a project from like the 90s that died off. And then a few years ago, it was resurrected. And think of it as an incredibly cut down version of WHD load that runs on Workbench 1.3. So I'm thinking, brilliant. And you'll also notice that it's got a quick key command as well, which is actually the main reason I put this 68010 in there, because not all games will recognize the quit key with a straight 68,000. So the 68, I don't know why, but the 68010 allows the quit key command to work. Okay. So that got me thinking. There's a stack of games in that WHD load directory on the data drive. What games are in there that I might be able to use? And I actually then kind of worked out, with a bit of help from David and a bit of me kind of sleuthing around, how they're actually added to that launcher menu to kind of make them usable. So I've already added a couple of my own. I added Alien Breed, Formula One Grand Prix, and Hard Driving. I found that they all worked. Now you've got to remember, not all games will work, even if they are, even if in theory they would run on an A500 or whatever, because you're always going to be limited to that 512K of chip RAM. So some things just aren't going to work through this. They might work fine if you were to boot them up from disk or the Gotek or whatever, but on this they just may not run. So this launcher is actually pretty cool. It's just nice and lightweight, but you do have to add stuff manually. And remember, there's that huge WHD load collection on the data drive. How can we make use of that? Well, we need to add stuff to this kind of manually. I generally start off with directory opus and finding a game that isn't already in there. Now, I already know Indianapolis 500 isn't on that list, and by Jove, it should be. So let's go to that data drive, games, and in here should be Indianapolis 500. Right, come down to edit, go right click, new file. Let's call the file simply Indy 500. Now, it's actually opened up ed, but behind directory opus. So it's just here. And so we go JST Indy 500, JST game.slave, and we'll throw the quit key command in there. Quit key equals $5 F for the home key. You can't see it at the bottom here, but it's escape X enter. And we now have our game slave file. And what I want to do now is, just purely for neatness, I want to go to the parent. Over on the right-hand side, I want to go to my main drive. And this is where all kind of the fixed, the known working games are. So games, racing, I want to copy that folder across. And with that done, let's neaten up that folder name. Right, and we're finished in directory opus. Back to the launcher, we can go add. We will call this Indian, I've got it actually on my phone because I always spell it wrong, Apollos 500. It's actually called Indianapolis 500, the simulation, but that's fine. It is a game. It is a racing game. It was done by Papyrus. P-A-P-Y-R-U-S, had to think about that, and it was released in 1990, I believe, for the Amiga. Click down on the script, and we want to go to where we just copied it to, so games, racing, Indianapolis 500, and we want that Indy 500 script that we wanted. Okay, save. And we should now be able to search for Indy. We've got Indiana Jones, but we've got Indianapolis 500, and I should be able to double click on that, and it should work. I can tell you now that Batman the movie didn't. Ask me how I know. But there you go, Indy 500. It's obviously cracked. You can put whatever you want in there. And there you go, Indianapolis 500. Very nice. Ooh. Of course, what you actually do in Indy 500 is start a race, do a U-turn, and create the biggest crash you possibly can. So what else is already installed on here? Well, I can tell you that one of the best racing games ever is, and that's Lotus, or actually Lotus 2. I always cheat and go automatic. This is one of these racing games that I think is almost as good as Outrun. Almost. I might be biased. Actually, it's really good. It's one of those games, it's fun, it's not ridiculously difficult. You can quite easily just sit down and have a couple of good games on it. And it runs great on this Amiga 1000. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of other classics on here. Monkey Island is there, and it works great. Like I said, I've actually added Alien Breed myself. It wasn't there originally, but it runs fantastic. I like this. It's kind of got a, it's like, I don't know, Gauntlet in space. It's just, it's not the first, at least the early levels, they're not that difficult. And I think it's drawn really well. Everything's kind of bold and easy to see. You're not struggling with kind of, you know, what can I see and what I can't. Plenty of things to collect. Yeah, just good fun. So all up, including the stuff that I've added, which is only about, I don't know, 5 or 6 items. As you can see up the top here, there's 225 items already in there, so plenty to keep you entertained. And now you also know how to add stuff to it. And there we have it, my Amiga 1000. And I actually think it's come up pretty well. I mean, obviously in the first video we gave it a good scrub and we added the GoTech and the boot switcher thing. But honestly, the Parceiro just makes it. I still have kind of the correct look and feel for an Amiga 1000 in the sense that it's still running Workbench 1.3, but it's given me just that little bit of extra usability, like it's got hard drive, just a little extra RAM to make things run a bit better. That transfer directory, or drive, I should say, on the SD card is just brilliant. Yes, that launcher is, obviously it's a little clunky in the sense that you've got to manually add things, but in saying that, look, it's an Amiga 1000, you know, yes, you could, if you were able to run iGame or something, but I'm pretty sure if you tried to get iGame to scan like the entire WHD load library that's on here, the whole machine would probably start smoking. So look, and I think at the end of the day, it also kind of, for me at least, allows me to easily narrow down my favorites and only add them to the menu. But all in all, it's just made for a great, usable, truly classic computer that honestly I'm very proud now to own. In regards to the Parceiro, can I recommend one? Yeah, pretty much. Look, they're not cheap, but neither's an Amiga 1000 these days. So if you've invested the money in this, it's not that much more of a step to invest in that. And it just makes the world of difference. Yes, you do have to do a small mod, but it is reversible. It's only like one wire and two sockets. Dropping in the 68010 for me at least, even if it's just to make the quick key for JST games work, was definitely worth it. And again, completely reversible. So hand on heart and not sponsored or anything like that, I spent my own money on this. Yes, I can recommend the Parceiro for the Amiga 1000. But for now, that will pretty much do it. If you liked the video, click like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff. A massive shout out to David Dunkley, who not only sold me this, but and makes it, but was also happy to, via email, help me out through some of the things I didn't understand. And I greatly appreciate it because now, with that extra knowledge, I can get so much more out of this device. And as always, a massive shout out to my patrons who are scrolling up the screen as I speak, because without them, I wouldn't be able to demonstrate and show awesome computers and upgrades like this. And if you'd like to help support the channel, there is a link in the description. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.